Okay, so these 3 episodes that dropped of After the Altar, they didn't, I don't know, they didn't have as much content as I thought they were going to have. And by content, I mean drama. We all love the drama. But I'm actually glad they didn't like super focus on the drama that went down with Raven and SK, because that's just a really hurtful situation to go through. And Raven gave her piece at the end of episode 3 that I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, let's get into it. So first opening scene, we see Raven waiting for SK at the airport. And for the first time, I think I saw her with straight hair. She looks really pretty. But obviously my first thought was, okay, this was definitely filmed before all the drama went down. Then we get to see Alexa and Brennan. They're doing good. Obviously, I had no doubts about their relationship, but it looks like they're all getting ready for a dinner that they're going to have at Alexa's house. And I wondered this throughout the Love is Blind episodes as well, but I'm like, I wonder, what does her family do? Have they disclosed what they do? Because they clearly have money. And I'm just like, I'm so nosy. I'm just like so curious. Like, I wonder what her dad does. Personally, I love Alexa. I love her personality. I think she has a big personality. She's kind of like sarcastic and she's very like quick with her words and can kind of come off kind of as mean, but I think that's just a sarcasm. And we see her talking to her stepmom, which at first I thought it was her sister because obviously she's young. And to me, they kind of look alike. So I was like, oh, that must be her sister. And it's actually her stepmom. So they're not even blood related. Therefore, there's no reason for them to look alike. Then we see Colleen and Matt, and they talk about their housing situation. Obviously, they're married, but they don't live together yet for a whole number of reasons. And she talks about like they have a dog. Well, it's technically Matt's dog, but their dog now. And they talk about how before they get another dog, they need to get a house. And I'm like, that's what I said. And now I have 3 dogs and still no house. So SK and Raven, after the whole wedding situation happened where he basically said no, they kind of went their separate ways and then they found their way back to each other. And SK talks about how like obviously it was the most difficult decision for him to say no at the altar. He couldn't say yes to something that he wasn't completely certain about. And I was just like, I totally understand that because it is like a quick show, and for you to feel like you're in love with this person and you're going to marry them within a number of weeks is insane. But to me, it just seemed like Raven was just so much more sure about the relationship than he was. And obviously we see that later. But he talks about how like after they finished filming, he moved to California and was just doing his thing. And then I guess they were still in touch, so they kind of tried to explore the idea of getting back together. And he talks really nicely about her. And obviously after everything that happened with SK cheating on her and all that stuff, I'm just kind of like, I can't even look at you the same. I can't even take what you're saying seriously, because obviously if this was something you were really serious about, then you wouldn't have done what you did. We know that they've been in like a long distance relationship. I think she's in Texas, and he's obviously in California. So between his internship, his full-time job, and going to school, like he never makes her feel like he's not there. Like she's like, I never think like, oh, he hasn't called me today or anything like that. And I was like, man, how is it that you have basically like 3 different jobs, right? And you still find the time to cheat? Like, I'm telling you, men ain't shit. And Nancy and Bartise, this was so confusing to me. Like their situation, we see them having drinks. They talk about how they've seen each other frequently after everything happened. And I actually didn't know that. I thought she like could have, because the speech that she gave him when he said no at the altar, I was like, good for her. I was rooting for her. And then they turn around and they're like friends who have hung out multiple times. I was shocked. He talks about how Nancy is different from any other ex that he's had in his life because obviously they were very close to getting married and they get along great. They have fun every single time they hang out. So it just makes sense for him to want her in his life. And she basically says the same thing. She talks about his positivity, his like level of energy, how she likes being around him, and that he's a good person. And I was just looking at their whole conversation, right? I'm like, he looked a little like he was blushing kind of, and he looked a little flirty, and I was kind of like, is he still interested in her? And I got the same vibe from her. I was just confused. So then we see all the girls meet up for lunch. We finally see Zanab, and she obviously looks beautiful. I always thought she was really pretty. So when Cole was over there telling people, like, she's not necessarily, like, the girl I would go for, I'm just like, so you wouldn't go for a pretty girl? Like, she's beautiful. What's wrong with her? I think it was Raven that tells Nancy, like, so are you going to spill the tea with her and Bartise? And so they ask her, like, have you hooked up with him after everything happened? And she's like, no, but there was, like, what she calls an intimate moment, and then she clarifies that she was, like, sitting on his lap kind of, but that the next day she was kind of like, okay, that's not okay, like, I shouldn't be doing that. And that it's kind of hard because obviously they were in, like, this relationship, and I think it's for her, it's kind of like blurred lines, like she doesn't know, because she was already intimate with him, she doesn't kind of know, like, where she's crossing the line, I think. So Cole, we see him having drinks with, like, some friends, and personally, whenever I see Cole and the way he expresses himself, I'm just like, I feel like he was just such a different person from Zay, as he likes to call her. And I think there was just, their communication styles were different. He had just a very different way of being than her, that I think they would have never, ever been on the same page. They're not a good match because they are so different in very important aspects. I mean, you got to be able to communicate, you know, like, I never thought it was going to work, and I never fully put the blame on Cole. Do I think that he might have said some things that weren't okay? Absolutely. But I also think it's his way of kind of being, like, I don't know. He's telling them all this stuff. He wants to move to San Diego. He brings up Zay, how she played him and all of this stuff. And it's just so crazy because if you look at Cole and you look at Zay, they both kind of feel the same way about each other, right? Like, you played me, you did this. And yeah, he just talks about how the whole thing with Zay was pretty traumatizing to go through. And I don't know, whenever he brings up the Zay situation, I feel like you can tell it is something that traumatized him, and it's something that hurts him to talk about. He talks about the fat shaming, how he's still confused to this day, how he was never fat shaming her, the whole cutie situation. Like, cuties, he's like, they're fruits, like, why would I even, like, he's basically like, they don't even have any calories and stuff, which they do. They have sugar. At the end of the day, they are fruits and they are natural, but they still have sugar. But yeah, he's basically trying to say, like, why would I get on her about eating fruit of all things? And he brings up Alexa's birthday party, so he says he's going to see her there. And he talks about how, like, 20% of him wants to say, like, mean, hurtful things to her, but then the other 80% of him just loves Zay as a person. That relationship is just so complicated. Like, there's just so much to it that I don't even think anyone would ever be able to explain it or understand it. So we see the guys out bowling. It's all the guys, I believe, except Cole, which I'm like, oh, kind of shady. Y'all left Cole out. But they asked Bartise if there's still romantic feelings there for Nancy. And he says no. And I think Brennan asked her, like, have you told her that it's different to tell somebody than to let somebody assume, right, that there's no feelings there. And he's like, no. And he basically says, like, I literally said no at the altar. Like, why would she think that there's feelings there? That's true. But like I said, when I saw their interaction earlier, I was confused. I was kind of like, he seems like he's kind of into her. I don't know. But he does talk about how he's a flirt and he's just like that with people. So it's one of those things, like, well, you can't read too much into it. If you're a flirt, you're going to flirt with everyone, you know? So poor Nancy, because it seems like there's feelings there. SK and Raven, they go out to eat with SK's brother, AB. I'm like, it's so funny because they all have, like, initials as names. It's not their real name. I forgot what SK's, like, full name is. But, yeah, so they go out to eat with his brother. And he's, like, sharing a salad with Raven. And his brother's like, I cannot believe that you're eating a salad. And SK's like, no, you know, it's kind of good. Raven's an interesting character, too, because I remember throughout the season, she was like, what did she say? I can't remember if she said if we're dating or if we're married. I want to say she said dating because it just sounded so outrageous. She was like, I expect him to pay for half of my rent because they were living in different states, right? So I was like, wow, that's crazy. Because at the end of the day, SK still is living in California, right? So he still has to pay for his rent out there. He's like paying two rents, basically. I don't know. Raven is something else, but I do love her. I love Raven, love her Pilates. If anyone hasn't checked out her like YouTube channel, I like to go to her YouTube channel when I'm trying to do Pilates. I'd like to get 100% on it because I do need to be serious about working out, but I'll get there. His brother talks about how he was skeptical at first about the situation because long distance isn't for everyone, and that's a fact. And so Raven goes to the bathroom, and his brother AB is just kind of like, wow, like this is like the happiest I've ever seen you. And SK says that he knows he struck gold. He says that he says something like, I need to give her the confidence that I'm gonna be here a year from now. Dude. And he goes into the fact that he's planning to propose to her again. And all of this, I'm just sitting there, right? Because everyone that knows all the drama, obviously, the whole TikTok scandal that came out about SK and all these girls, it's just like, dude, the audacity of this man to get on. I'm like, did you do it for the cameras? What did you do it for? Like, did you do it so you could look like this amazing guy? And because, all of these things, like, it's just, I cannot. So now we get into the second episode. And Nancy's talking to her family, aka her mom and her brother. The mom and the brother that got really heated at her wedding. And she's like, well, Bartise is going to be there. And I guess up to that point, they didn't know that she was still in contact with Bartise. And so she kind of is telling them like, he's my friend, and they're kind of like working on their friendship. And she's just basically trying to explain to them the situation, talks about how they had like a 4-hour long conversation about everything that happened the day of the wedding. And her mom's like butting in, like, what are you doing? Because we know her mom is not here for Bartise. I mean, I agree, right? Any mother would feel the same way if they saw what happened. And so she's just like, why do you even want to be his friend? So I support Nancy's mom, but she's just saying a whole bunch of stuff, like, because obviously she's irritated that Nancy is still like even entertaining that situation. And Nancy claps back in Spanish. She's just like, chica, por favor, cálmate. Because she can see her mom's getting, kind of loud and upset. And she's just kind of explaining, like, I need time to process because Bartise does, like, he means a lot to me, basically. She goes into how, I guess, Nancy is too nice. She never cuts people off. And it leads me to wonder, like, is she friends with all of her exes? Because her last ex, was she married to him? No, right? I don't know why, I can't remember, but I feel like she got married to him because it was like they owned property together, and that's kind of like, a big step to do with someone. I don't think they were ever married, but obviously she's still in contact with her ex because they do own properties together, apparently. So it leads me to think that Nancy is just like a really nice person, and she's one of those who like doesn't feel the need to cut people off, even if they've been in like a relationship and it didn't end well. And I guess she has tried dating, but like it just never feels right. It's because she's holding on to all of these like memories or like what could have been with Bartise. And she starts crying, and her mom's like, it's okay to cry. I feel like her mom just raised her to be independent and not really depend on any man, and you can see that. And yeah, I totally understand where her mom's coming from, but at the end of the day, you can only say what you need to say, and then you can't be that parent that just is like constantly trying to put your beliefs or like what you think you should do into your child. Like at the end of the day, you can guide them and you can give them advice, but it's their life and they will do what they want with it. Her brother was pretty calm though. I was surprised. So it cuts to Alexa's birthday party. We see her in a pretty lacy black like see-through dress. You can see like her underwear, thong, whatever it was, and they're all just kind of like hanging around. There's a moment where I guess Alexa's dad was like the last one to get to the birthday party, and Alexa's like, not you being the last one to come in, and Brennan's like, oh, did you bring a present or something like that? And his dad's like, yeah, it's in my pants. And they're all like, dick in a box. I can see why Brennan said what he said, because he said earlier that his relationship with her dad is like he said, I don't want to say vulgar, but I don't really know how to explain it, I think he said. And I was like, hey, her dad has a sense of humor, just like Alexa. And Cole finally gets to the party. Brennan and Alexa both say hi. They were friendly enough. I was like, okay, cool. I'm pretty sure if it was up to Alexa, she wouldn't have had Cole there. But obviously, they're filming. They need to have Cole there. And so Cole meets Alexa's stepmom. And there's this whole scene where I was like, oh my God, this is why Cole sometimes... I'm just like, this is like his immature side, because he meets her mom and he's like, there's no way you're her mom. And she's like, oh, I'm her stepmom. And he's just like, there's no way, you look like the same age as her and all these things. But just the way that he's doing it, I'm like, dude, this is why, Cole. Like, it's just not the right way, I feel, to go about things. You can tell someone they look like young and whatever, they look good for their age, whatever the case may be, but it's just like the way he handles certain situations, I'm just like, dude. And Bartise kind of steps in and gets Brennan and Cole to try and like talk it out. And that conversation, just like, I don't even know what that conversation was about. Basically, Cole is trying to say, like, I never had any beef with Brennan until the reunion, or I'm not sure. But he's like, you only have a problem with me because of Alexa, because Alexa's friends with Zay, and obviously a situation that happened with Zay kind of thing. And he's like, no, like, I have a problem with you with like basically the comments that he made about her, how she was too fat, she's eating too much, not his type, and about him like hitting on other girls at bars. And Cole denies again the hitting on girls at bars. That whole situation, I'm like, so did it happen or did it not? Because there's a lot of yes, like he said, she said, basically, like, we don't know, right? This was all revealed at the reunion. We don't really know, but that whole I think that's a very important part, honestly, because if he was hitting on girls, then that does change my mind a little about Cole, but no one seems to have a straight up answer. It's like, I need to know. And yeah, so they look like they kind of at the end of their convo, like, they kind of like are okay, I guess. Kind of like a fake okay, I guess. And here we go with Nancy and Bartise again. They finally sit down and they talk at the party. And he goes into like, I guess Bartise is still pretty cool with the girls. I don't think he's cool like that with Raven though, obviously. But he talks about how Colleen and Zay told him that they told Nancy that she needs to cut him off. And Nancy's just kind of like, being friends with you doesn't help because of everything that we went through. She's like, I've tried being your friend for like a year. It just doesn't work. And he's, I think she's trying to make her case like, hey, we just shouldn't talk anymore. We shouldn't be in each other's lives. And he's kind of trying to convince her like, why are you letting other people influence like what you do? It was interesting because the way I saw him kind of fighting back, it was like, okay, he seems like he really does want Nancy in his life. And I don't know, like, I get mixed vibes. Like, I don't even know. He says he doesn't like her, but to me, it almost seems like he does. But maybe he just really likes her as a friend. Maybe he, everything that they went through, he doesn't see her like that romantically. But because they went through that, he does feel connected to her in some way. And that's why he wants her in his life. I'm not sure what it is. But he's basically like, you're letting people get in your head. You just don't want to look like the dumb girl that keeps running back to her ex. And I was like, yeah, facts. No one obviously wants to look like that. But if they're just being friends, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, it does seem like Nancy does have feelings still. At the end, she basically tells him that she's ending the friendship. So that's where the second episode cuts off. And then we go into episode 3. And Cole breaks the ice and goes up and talks to the girls, and obviously Zay is there, and he asks her if she would like to go and talk. And he says, the first thing I want to say is sorry, like basically I had no idea, like I made you feel some type of way of like the way you eat or the things you eat or whatever. And they're just kind of going back and forth and I don't know, that again, that whole relationship is just, I don't think they're ever going to see eye to eye. And it seemed like they kind of left things off on a good note, but I don't think it'll ever really be on a good note, obviously. Again, I just think it's two people who communicate differently, and they have very different personalities. Therefore, I don't think it would have ever worked out. Now, I don't justify anything he ever said about her eating or about how she looks, because he in fact did say that she was not like his type, kind of, you know, and that basically Colleen was more of his type. And it's like, Colleen is also a beautiful girl, but what the hell, what is wrong with Zanab? You know, she's gorgeous. And she seemed like she had a nice personality. When we saw that cutie scene, like, I remember when that cutie scene aired, people were like coming for Zay, kind of, because they were like, you were lying, you over exaggerated the whole situation, blah 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 blah. But I don't think she over exaggerated the situation. I truly just feel like they communicate differently. He's kind of sarcastic, and I don't even think he meant the cuties thing as sarcastic. Like, he was just like, I don't know. When I saw the cutie scene, I was like, but I do understand how something even so small, when you're insecure about something, he already said that she wasn't kind of her type, right? His type. And then I'm sure there were other things that he might have said that she might have took to, like, he might have just been kidding, or he might have just said one very small thing and she just took to it. And to her, it was like, oh, okay, like, you have a problem with my weight. So I don't know. I don't think it's ever okay to make anyone feel a type of way about their weight. And yeah, again, different communication styles. I like them both. I don't think it would have ever worked, though, even if the whole cuties thing or the whole food situation or whatever it was never happened. We see SK go ring shopping with his brother. I'm just so disappointed. His brother, there was a moment where his brother's like, you should ask them about like cancellations or whatever, because of, I guess because of like Raven might say no, but it's like, he should ask him about cancellations because he was out here cheating and he was going to get caught. So we see Raven and SK, they got to dinner. They ride the elevator all the way to the top, rooftop. And once the elevator opens, we see this like aisle of like long candles, like bedazzled, kind of like sparkly candles. I don't even know how to explain it, but it was beautiful. So it leads to a big heart made out of white roses. And it says, there's like a sign hanging in the middle, like, will you marry me? And it was just so pretty. It was really super pretty. Of course, she starts crying. You know, she kind of starts choking up. I was like, oh my God, Raven. Like, I feel for her so hard, because she really changed my mind this season. I really judged her at first, when she first came on. And because I thought she was one way, and then she turned out to be like not the person that I thought she was. So I just feel really, really bad for her. But, you know, she starts crying. He gets down on one knee, gives her this whole beautiful speech. And of course, obviously, she says yes. And yeah, she talks about how he's like everything that she's ever wanted, and he's her comfort blanket. And I was like, as if this couldn't get sadder. And that's kind of where basically episode 3 like officially ends, I guess, had all this not come out. But then we see her kind of having her own like little like blogging moment in her home. You know, Raven's just opening up about the situation. She just basically is in disbelief that he cheated on her. She basically says all the things that people say and feel when someone has betrayed them in that way. She trusted him with anything and everything. She couldn't imagine opening up to someone like she did with him, and all of these things. And I just feel so bad for Raven. Obviously, the whole cheating situation happened through TikTok, basically. Like, it all got revealed through TikTok. Like, I saw 2 specific accounts from 2 different girls that basically outed SK. And one of the girls had receipts for days. Like, the pictures correlated with the pictures on his Instagram. She went on vacation with this man. Girl, she went on vacation with this man. I truly don't understand how men are so freaking stupid sometimes. You know, it's one thing to cheat on a normal person. Obviously, that is never okay. But SK was on a reality show where you are looking for love, and he thought he could get away with not only cheating, but going on vacation with this woman. Like, it was insane. I mean, this girl spilled all the tea. I think her name was like Hannah or something. Hannah Beth or something like that. Sorry, I don't remember. Raven had spoken out when a few things came out, and she was like, we're working. I think she even said they were going to couples therapy. I don't know. But it was very much, that's my man, and we're working on it. Then there were some pictures of them together at Costco that came out. Like, it was a whole thing. Like, I was very confused. People were saying that like they actually weren't together and they were just like playing it up for the cameras, and obviously they're okay with, you know, everyone dating who they want to date. But I was like, there's no way Raven's doing that. There's just no freaking way. And of course there wasn't. It wasn't what it was. So I just I feel so bad for her, but I'm sure like she's thriving with her Pilates, like her Pilates YouTube. Like, I remember when I first started watching, I went on her YouTube and she only had like, I don't know how many thousand subscribers. She got over 100K now, like probably over 200K. I don't even know. But I just like, she's going places, obviously. Like, SK clearly can't be trusted. And yeah, I'm honestly surprised that they didn't interview SK, but I'm sure they tried to reach out to him for comment. And what is he going to say? Like, you're just going to look like a douchebag. There's no way you can justify anything that went down. So that was probably why he didn't say anything, because at the end of the day, nothing you say is going to make you look good. Nothing you say is going to make the situation better. So good for Raven. I hope that she completely cut him out of his life and she's not pulling like a Nancy and Barty situation. Obviously that's different, but like still, like, no, girl. That's where I stand with all of that. But that was basically the end of the 3 episodes. I'm so sad there wasn't more. That is it for the After the Altar recap. I didn't really touch on Colleen and Matt, and that's because I don't really feel like there's much to say about them. I don't know. Anyways, I'll be recapping The Bachelor. If you like this, then please go watch those videos. And yeah, I will see you next time.